Good afternoon. This is John Burke, and this video is the third video in my short series about the Tucker Carlson Putin interview. In the interview, Putin mentioned the use of the US dollar as a tool of foreign policy, and he mentioned this in the context of the broader role of economic sanctions. I want to add to this something that I didn't mention, and that is the lingering threat of the confiscation of Russian assets held by custodians in the European Union and the United States. I'm going to talk about these issues from two perspectives, the legal perspective and the factual perspective. So what do I mean? I'm going to answer the question whether, under principles of public international law, a nation state can unilaterally impose coercive measures against another nation state. And this will cover economic and financial sanctions. The next question I'm going to ask is there any hard data, empirical data, that shows the decline of the US dollar, arguably stemming from its misuse as a tool of foreign policy? Right away, let's get the short answers. The legal perspective. Is it lawful under principles of international law for a nation state to impose unilaterally sanctions against another nation state? There is absolutely no consensus among legal experts and nation states. We essentially have two camps. One argues it violates public international law. The other says it does not. So we simply can't get a definitive answer. On the second question, I think we can get a definitive answer. According to my research, the empirical data does not support the fact that the US dollar is in some sort of free fall or major decline. The opposite is actually true. Since 2012, the US dollar as a global reserve currency, trade currency, forex currency has actually maintained its predominance and in some cases increased. I'm going to talk about the legal issue first. So everyone knows the United States and the European Union have rolled out an immense range of sanctions against the Russian Federation. And these include trade restrictions, restrictions on foreign investment, and financial sanctions. Very broad. The financial sanctions are particularly troubling. Why? Because the United States, in fact, has created the international financial system that we use. So we might say that it has a monopoly power over this international financial system. And if it cuts off a country from the use of the international financial system, it could have very serious repercussions, adverse repercussions for the nation state. I'm not going to go into all legal sources because it's too broad, but I thought today we could take a look at the UN Charter since it embodies many principles of public international law that's supposed to govern the relations among nation states. As everyone knows, the United Nations was the result of a conference held in San Francisco in 1945, and at this conference, the United Nations Charter was, in fact, drafted. I want to mention 4 points from the Charter. First, the United Nations is the exclusive forum to settle disputes among nation states. That's clear from the language. Second, another principle. If nation states have a dispute, they are obligated, first, to settle them by peaceful means. Third, the United Nations Charter stops or prohibits nation states from threatening the use of force or using force against another member state to interfere with its political independence. The fourth point is that if disputes cannot be resolved by peaceful means, then it's my contention that the imposition of economic sanctions, coercive measures, whatever you want to call them, or force, that is the province of the Security Council, and specifically the permanent members of the Security Council. So, on the whole, reading the United Nations Charter, the better interpretation, in my opinion, is that a nation state does not have the authority under public international law to unilaterally impose coercive measures against another nation state. If we don't go with that interpretation, the United Nations Charter is simply upended. And I want to just briefly quote from a resolution of the General Assembly that was made on the 19th of December 2023 that deals with human rights and unilateral coercive measures. It says, "We urge all states to cease adopting or implementing any unilateral measures not in accordance with international law and the Charter of the United Nations." All right, this is not definitive evidence that's going to resolve the question, but I think it's important that in 2023, the General Assembly is concerned about states acting on their own outside the context of the United Nations and the United Nations Charter and taking action against another state unilaterally. All right, let's move on to the second question. Is the US dollar at risk of losing its status as the global reserve currency, trade currency, and so on? Well, it may be, but the empirical data that I found, and I'm drawing upon the Bank of International Settlements and this website Statista, which I have mentioned before, is extremely reliable. It's very good. Let's take a look at what they have to say. So, since 2012 until 2023, has there been any significant changes in the share of the dollar in particular aspects of the international financial system? And the quick answer is no. So as of 2023, almost 90% of foreign exchange transactions involve the dollar. And this is up from 2012 by 1.4%. Let's look at SWIFT payments. Approximately 47% of all SWIFT payments are done in dollars. This is up 13% from 2012. And to put this in perspective, let's look at the performance of the Chinese yuan in 2023. 3%. It's minuscule. And finally, let's take a look at official foreign exchange reserves. What's happened to them? Yes, they have come down since 2012, but almost 60% of foreign exchange reserves held by central banks are dollars. It's down 2.5%. It's not significant. The other major currency is the euro. And then following suit, we have British pound sterling and yen. Now, the serious question, because it hasn't happened yet, is the confiscation of Russian assets that are held abroad. If these assets are seized, this will, I think, mark a significant event in how nation states attempt to resolve disputes among one another. I mean, confiscating the assets that belong to your equal to another sovereign nation state, I don't think there is a basis in law for doing this. Combined with the sanctions, this should lead many states to consider whether it is best to use the dollar as a trade and global reserve currency. And of course, do you really want to keep your assets under the custody of an institution in the United States or European Union? Maybe not. But for right now, we can say that I cannot see, based on facts, the imminent demise of the US dollar. And before I close, and I've mentioned these institutions before, in 2014, the BRICS created the New Development Bank and the Contingent Reserve Arrangement. They had an opportunity then to do something truly transformative, revolutionary. Remember, at that time, you had new technology already in place, distributed ledger technology, cryptography, and how to move money safely and swiftly. They did not do that. The new development bank and the contingent reserve arrangement are copy-paste from the 1944 institutions, IMF and World Bank. In my opinion, they missed an opportunity. Is it too late? No. But there has to be a lot of action if the BRICS intend to make a dent in the role of the US dollar as a reserve, trade, and payment currency. I hope you liked the video. If you do, please subscribe and give it a like, and I will talk to you soon. Thank you.